Lily Harper was a young woman with dreams much bigger than her modest life allowed. At just 23 years old, she worked tirelessly at Rosie's Diner, a small, run-down restaurant in the heart of New York City. The chipped paint on the walls and the neon "open" sign outside mirrored her struggles, yet she always managed to smile. Lily had a gift, not just for serving customers, but for making people feel seen and valued. Despite her long shifts and meager wages, Lily had a habit that made her stand out. Every night after her shift, she would gather leftover food from the diner and distribute it to the homeless people she passed on her walk home. To her, it was a small act of kindness, but to those she helped, it meant the world. On one particularly cold evening, rain poured relentlessly, soaking the city streets. As Lily hurried home, clutching her worn jacket tightly around her, she noticed a small figure huddled under a bus stop shelter. It was a young boy, no older than 8, shivering in the storm. His clothes were soaked through. She paused, her heart aching at the sight. "Hey, there," she said gently, kneeling beside him. "Are you okay? Where are your parents?" The boy looked up, his face pale and frightened. "I don't have anyone," he whispered. "I'm hungry." Without a second thought, Lily took his hand and led him back to the diner. The rain soaked them both, but she didn't care. Once inside, she wrapped him in a warm blanket and served him a steaming bowl of soup. The boy's face lit up as he ate, and for the first time that night, Lily felt a sense of warmth in her chest despite the cold. What Lily didn't realize was that someone had been watching her. Across the street, a sleek black car was parked, its engine idling softly. Inside sat James Dalton, a billionaire known for his sharp business mind and private demeanor. He had been driving through the area after a stressful day, hoping the quiet streets would clear his head. But then he saw her. At first, it was just curiosity. Why was a young woman out in the rain, kneeling beside a homeless boy? But as James watched Lily lead the boy to the diner and take care of him, he couldn't look away. Her actions were so genuine, so selfless, that they struck a chord deep within him. "Who is she?" James murmured to himself, his gaze fixed on the diner. For the first time in years, James felt something stir inside him, a sense of wonder and admiration he couldn't quite explain. He scribbled down the name of the diner and drove away, but the image of Lily stayed with him long after he returned to his luxurious penthouse. The next few days were a blur for Lily. Between juggling double shifts and taking care of her younger brother, who relied on her to pay for his school fees, she barely had time to think about the boy she had helped. But the memory of his smile lingered, giving her strength to push through her exhaustion. Meanwhile, James couldn't stop thinking about the waitress. He had everything money could buy, yet he couldn't shake the image of her, soaking wet in the rain, offering warmth and kindness to someone who had nothing. It wasn't just her actions that captivated him, it was the purity of her heart. He needed to know more about her. One evening, James made a decision. Dressed in a tailored suit that seemed out of place for a diner, he walked through the door of Rosie's. The bell above the door jingled softly, drawing Lily's attention. She was balancing a tray of plates, her hair slightly frizzy from the humidity, but her smile was as radiant as ever. James froze for a moment, struck by the familiarity of her face. Lily greeted him with the same warmth she offered all her customers. "Welcome to Rosie's. Have a seat anywhere you like," she said, her voice cheerful despite the weariness in her eyes. James chose a corner booth, his gaze following her every move as she worked. She treated everyone with the same kindness he had seen that rainy night. She helped an elderly customer count his change, offered a free coffee refill to a struggling mother, and even paused to check on a regular who seemed unusually quiet. Every interaction confirmed what James already knew: this woman was extraordinary. When his meal was finished, James handed Lily the bill without saying much, but as he left, he slipped an envelope under his plate. Lily didn't notice it until she went to clear the table. Inside was a stack of crisp bills, far more than any normal tip. Her hands trembled as she counted the money, her mind racing with questions. She ran outside searching for the mysterious man, but he was already gone. The sleek black car she had noticed earlier was nowhere in sight. For the rest of the night, Lily couldn't stop wondering, Who was he, and why had he left such a generous tip? The next morning, the restaurant buzzed with activity. Lily tied on her apron and began her shift, unaware of how drastically her life was about to change. Her mind was still on the homeless man she had helped just a few days ago. She hoped he had found a safe place to rest, but her focus quickly turned back to the customers filing in for breakfast. Around midday, the restaurant's front door swung open, and a tall, sharply dressed man entered. His tailored suit and polished shoes stood out among the casual diners. Lily didn't notice him at first, as she was busy taking an elderly couple's order. But when the hostess approached her, whispering, "That gentleman over there asked for you to be a server," Lily glanced at the man in surprise. She didn't recognize him at first, but when their eyes met, a strange sense of familiarity tugged at her. The man smiled warmly, his gaze lingering as if he were studying her. Lily shrugged off the odd feeling and approached his table, her notepad and pen in hand. "Good afternoon," she said with her usual friendly tone. "What can I get you today?" The man hesitated for a moment before replying, "I'll take the special of the day, but only if you promise to take a break and join me for coffee later." Lily blinked, caught off guard by his request. "Oh, I'm sorry, but I don't usually take breaks during my shift. Is there anything else you'd like with your order?" The man chuckled. "Just a special for now," he said, handing her the menu. As Lily walked away, she couldn't shake the feeling that something about him was different, like he knew her but was choosing not to say so. As the meal progressed, the man observed Lily closely. He saw how she treated every customer with patience and kindness, no matter how busy or stressful it got. She carried trays with practiced ease, smiled at even the grumpiest diners, and checked on everyone's tables to make sure they were satisfied. To him, it was clear that Lily wasn't just hardworking, she was extraordinary. When she brought the man his bill, he reached into his wallet and pulled out a credit card. But as she turned to leave, he stopped her. "Wait," he said. "There's something I'd like to ask you." Lily paused, tilting her head curiously. "Yes?" The man leaned forward slightly. "Do you remember helping a homeless man on the street last week?" Her eyes widened in surprise. "Yes, I do," she replied. How do you know about that?" He smiled knowingly. "Let's just say I saw something that day. A young woman who went out of her way to help someone in need. I was impressed by your compassion." Lily blushed, feeling slightly embarrassed. "It was nothing, really. He needed help, and I just did what anyone should do." "Not everyone would have done what you did," the man said firmly. "Most people would have walked by without a second thought." He handed her a folded piece of paper along with the bill. "This is for you," he said. "Open it after I leave." Lily stared at the paper, confused but too polite to refuse. She watched as the man stood, gave her one last smile, and walked out of the restaurant. Her curiosity got the better of her, and she quickly unfolded the note. Inside was a check for $50,000. Beneath the staggering amount, there was a handwritten message: "Your kindness has inspired me. Use this to create the future you deserve. A grateful stranger." Lily's heart raced as she clutched the check, her hands trembling. She ran outside, scanning the street for any sign of the man, but he was gone. Her mind swirled with questions. Who was he? Why would he give her such an unbelievable gift? And why did he seem so familiar? That night, as she sat in her tiny apartment, Lily couldn't stop thinking about the mysterious man. She wanted to return the check, it was far too much money for her to accept. But there was no contact information on the note, and she had no idea how to find him. Days turned into weeks, and Lily's life began to change. With the money, she paid off her debts and started saving for her dream of opening a small cafe where everyone, including the homeless, could find a warm meal and a welcoming smile. Yet she still wondered about the man who had given her the chance to turn her life around. Then, one day, as she was walking home from the restaurant, a sleek black car pulled up beside her. The window rolled down, and there he was, the generous stranger from the restaurant. I hoped I'd find you, he said with a grin. Lily stopped in her tracks, her heart pounding. You again? Why did you give me that money? Who are you? The man stepped out of the car, his expression serious but kind. I owe you an explanation, he said. My name is Andrew Hale. I'm the CEO of Hale Enterprises. Lily's jaw dropped. Hale Enterprises was one of the biggest companies in the country, and Andrew Hale was a well-known billionaire. I didn't tell you who I was because I wanted to see how you'd react, he continued. I've spent years building wealth, but I've never seen anyone as selfless as you. Helping that homeless boy, it wasn't just an act of kindness. It showed who you truly are. Lily was speechless, struggling to process everything. But why would someone like you care about me? I'm just a waitress. Andrew smiled. You're far more than that. You have a heart that money can't buy, and I believe the world needs more people like you. He handed her an envelope. This is a deed to a small cafe downtown. It's yours now. Consider it an investment in someone who deserves it. Tears welled up in Lily's eyes. She tried to refuse, but Andrew insisted. Just promise me one thing, he said. Keep being the person who inspired me. Keep helping others. From that day forward, Lily's life transformed. Her cafe became a haven for those in need, just as she had always dreamed. And though she never fully understood why fate had brought Andrew Hale into her life, she knew one thing for certain: kindness, no matter how small, could change the world.